States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I move approval of the consent agenda with the instruction to the town treasurer to mail checks for all disbursements as soon as the checks have been prepared. Can I have a second?
I second it.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I would like to talk a little bit about that. I went to the school board meeting, the last school board meeting, and talked about some of the payment processes that were I saw in the last couple of warrants that I've signed. And certainly I'm concerned with the amount of late payments that we have. Not only are the checks that which we're correcting that process this evening, that they're going to be mailed out from here all at one time, but we have several accounts that have severely delayed bills. The most concerning ones to me are the insurance, both workers' comp and their health insurance. And should one of the employees from the school have a substantial injury and we get our insurance cut for lack of payment for over 45 days, that falls on the responsibility of the town of West Bath unnecessarily because we have insurance. So we need to make sure that not only are those bills paid on time, but there's no reason that we have the money. We're fortunate that the town has the money. If we ever have to borrow money or have to go out to bond, late payment history is going to negatively affect us on that, on our rates. So I'd like to make sure that we maintain all of our bill payment history in a current status. And I think certainly taking those checks and processing quickly from the town is a good step in that direction.
I agree with you on that. Are we ready to vote?
We are.
All in favor of the consent agenda as presented? Okay, excellent, thank you. The next Board of Selectmen meeting is Monday, February 10th, 2020. That will be at 5:30 here at the West Bath Town Hall. Announcements. The Saginaw County Budget Advisory Committee District Caucuses will be held at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, February 4th, 2020 in the Commissioners' Meeting Room at the courthouse at 752 High Street in Bath. That is a public meeting and anybody is urged to go. We do have, the town of West Bath we do have 2 people serving on that committee at this point. There is a vacancy that we would need to fill. Any public comment?
Yeah, comment. When I was signing our last warrant a couple weeks ago, I was privy to a conversation with our fire chief about his cell coverage. And he's got some concerns since he's transferred over to US Cellular that he has poor coverage on the south end of West Bath, in some cases no coverage. And at one point he was on with dispatch and dropped a call and was not experiencing that when he was on Verizon. So I think we should look into what guarantees our residents an opportunity to maintain good coverage with our fire chief and emergency vehicles.
Indeed.
He changed from Verizon.
Yes, he'd like to go back to Verizon, I believe. He said he had better coverage with that.
Well, I would hope he would then, yes.
Yes.
The town changed. The town did change. It's much simpler for the town to change than the county because it's hard to even expert a tower or anything else to increase the coverage. It's not a simple thing to.
He had a situation that he had 2 separate calls going and he was trying to manage between a situation, and he actually dropped a call and couldn't get back out to it.
Yeah.
So I think we definitely need to take a look at that.
We should do. There are places in town that have better reception depending on.
There's places down Birch Point he's gonna lose his call too. It's just
No matter who's got it.
there's certain places you're just down there that you can't get out. So. But-
You know, maybe we could look at getting a tower. I mean, I have no problem reaching out to a couple of folks.
Well, we do have radios in every one of these trucks, so there's no way that he could lose communication.
No, but he was actually on a call with dispatch when it dropped, and
Right.
then you're scrambling, trying to reconnect and.
But he could have gone on his radio and talked to dispatch too.
I have no problem letting him select his most comfortable.
I know, I'm just saying, it's not
No,
like
yeah,
he's
no.
just totally out of the water.
Right, he's never out of
Right.
total communication.
So, but yes, it shouldn't be happening. If he needs to make a private call into dispatch or something, so it ain't all heard all over the air, I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm just saying, he did have a backup. There's always a backup for emergency reasons.
Yes, that's reassuring to those of us who might have an emergency in a
Right.
pocket that's not well served.
Why did the town change?
I would imagine, I do not know, I would imagine it was a budgetary concern.
It was cheaper.
Any other comment? Then let's move to business item number 1, the treasurer's update.
Well, I have handed you some reports. The very top, Suzanne, yours might be under
In
your,
my packet?
under your,
Oh, under your paper.
Or maybe I stole yours.
maybe you should take copies.
I'll give it back at the end.
Yes.
You have one in there someplace.
I might.
But I always used to do the top sheet every year, every month. And I assumed you got it, but I'm not sure. So, and if you would have been receiving it, you would have known of the surplus. So I would like to have you, give you these monthly
Mm-hmm.
and have you sign off on them
Mhm.
so that we're all on the same page and know how much we have. And I don't know what you want for backup reports. I've included the general ledger, shows where the checkbook proves, all the separate accounts. Shows you outstanding taxes.
This is helpful, thank you, Julie.
I also gave you summary of your expenses,
Yeah,
so you can see where you're at.
we've had those regularly, that's, all on my sheets, very helpful, thank you.
Yes, it's
And
very
then
helpful.
a revenue, to see what I projected, what we've received, and what we've uncollected to the point. And I don't know if you each want your own individual reports, and just give you a summary sheet to sign off on.
I think,
The auditors also asked me if they would be very happy to have this signed off also.
we want to keep the auditors.
I would like to say on my good side.
I like the idea of having the full, the full bore here. And we also at the end have at the end of the selectment package, have a revenue and expense summary that we also get. So I think this makes a thorough readout of where we are. And it's more exciting than many novels I've read recently.
But this way, we're all on the same page.
Right. And everybody has the same information all at the same time. That's good.
Mhm. Well done, Julie.
Thank you.
So at your second meeting, I will have this for you.
Okay.
Because sometimes I get a little behind and don't get get the statements for your first meeting.
Right.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
lucky I got that for this one because I'm about a week behind this.
You are working on the IRS.
W-2s did not prove, so they've taken me a little extra time.
Right. Would you like us to sign off on the December balance sheet?
That would be wonderful.
We could do.
And the end of February, 28th, I believe, your foreclosures will happen automatically. So,
Sent her, I sent her online.
Oh.
But we have a backup.
but I will give you a list of before, who still hasn't paid, and then I'll give you a list who did get foreclosed.
Okay. Yes.
On the budget, as far as there's a couple of cemetery funds. How tied up are those as far as what they can be used for? Can we use to do some of the repairs to the cemetery we need now? I can't remember what they, which
I'm
ones.
sure we can spend the interest, I'm not sure how much we have right now.
'Cause-
Any idea?
We're only getting cents.
Yeah.
But if they've been there a long time, just wondering if you find some way to use them
Mhm.
for different cemeteries, to do some trimming of trees or
It makes
fixing
sense.
the fence, the chain fence is broken in various mills and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Um,
They've been around a long time, but
There must be a record of what the restrictions are.
I'm sure there are.
somewhere.
It's in the vault.
It's in the.
I've never actually read it, but I know we've never spent anything
never have, no.
in the 9 years I've been here. So,
Yeah.
I guarantee it's not a lot of interest, but. And is this a cemetery?
I think it is, I'm not positive.
one?
Marina Avalon?
That's the music fund, isn't it?
Says memorial.
I think that's for the music program.
Well, we should find some way to use it for the music program.
We'll have to look into that and actual paperwork for it.
I know we had a couple of funds, trust funds for Bath Memorial Hospital, that were just for Bath Memorial Hospital. That when they merged to one hospital, they found some way to
Yeah,
use those funds.
yes, good. Thank you, Julie. The next item on the agenda is the planning board appointment. I was,
I was at the planning board meeting,
yes,
and at the close, we shared with them who had submitted their applications at that time, and the planning board looked at them and they unanimously requested Darlene as their recommendation.
and I understand why they would do that. What I'm concerned about is that we have a number of people who have not served on the planning board who are also very qualified. And I'm wondering if it would not make more sense in terms of service to the entire town if we didn't interview those folks. We've never had 4 people applying for a board position.
I'm totally fine interviewing them, it's just that my concern would be that we need someone to chair, and no one on the current board wants to do that. And
That-
Darlene is prepared to step up and do that as she's done it in the
And
past.
I am aware of that, and it really concerns me that there's nobody currently serving on the planning board that wants to be chair. It really concerns me. I would really, I'm also assuming that the people on the planning board have not had conversations with people who have applied for the position. And I'd like everybody to have a fair chance at serving the town.
Absolutely, but certainly let the board who's gonna work with them, they have a history, and we should look at their recommendation as well.
And I think if we do the interviews, as we do the interviews, we would definitely take into consideration what the express wishes of the board itself. But I think it's fair, since we have this generous outpouring of offers of service that we take seriously, everybody. And I was just impressed with the quality of the applicants. So I think it's fair if we hear from them all.
Sure.
Christine, can you set up interviews or try with folks?
I certainly can. Is there a night that's better than another for you folks?
Sooner would be better
Yeah,
than later. I would be available.
Certainly evening is better for me, I have a day job.
yeah,
Right, and I would be available any of the evenings this week and next week, early in the week.
okay.
Tuesday night, you have to be at the county at 6 o'clock.
That's
Right,
true.
David?
That's good. That's good. That's part of the deal, isn't it?
Tuesday night, you have to be at the county meeting at 6 o'clock.
It's only 5 minutes away.
I was gonna say, we probably would be available by 6:30.
Okay.
Certainly by 6:45, if history repeats itself,
Well, that would be all three selectmen.
yes.
So we vote.
Yes, there is a vote. This is one of the little known duties.
So I'm going somewhere now again, next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday at 6 o'clock at the courthouse.
Okay, add that to my list of to-dos.
Thank you for the reminder.
Chris Nixon in Pittsburgh said he would do it again. He enjoyed it.
He has been on the.
For 1 year.
Yeah, a little bit more about that, so. Good. Good to know that there's somebody willing to do the job for a person. Next up, Sabino Road project. Steve, I think that's you.
Yeah. Well, I need the permission from you guys to jump on this before we lose our window. Getting that brook cleaned.
You'll notice that I included some photos that were sent to us just today, of some flooding that occurred over the weekend, or last night actually. They really show what Steve was pointing out and the need to get this work done as soon as possible. So those are in your folder.
Yeah, that's a pretty impressive flow.
Yeah,
And that was over the road too? Does that give us an emergency window to take care of the culvert?
Sure.
I would think so.
It could, but it's.
You're in
The culvert isn't gonna be real good, and there's no place for the water to escape. Probably the culvert we got in there will work just fine once we get the rest of it clean.
right.
But like I said, you gotta that's your first step, you need to get down through there and get that.
And it has to be frozen to do so.
Sure.
It's gotta be, yeah, preferably, and
Keeps warming up on us.
one day it's frozen, the next day it's not. I mean, when I went down and did all the GPS coordinates and followed it the whole way, there was 14 inches of snow. Now there's 3 inches of snow, so.
But hopefully be frozen most mornings anyhow to get in there.
Oh, exactly.
Even half a day.
It's only gonna have problem at one end of it, whether it's frozen or not. Because I wanted to try to sneak in the other end.
Have the landowners agreed now to?
Well, for the ones that we need to, I mean, the other ones, I just think what I've been setting up, I talked with Hawks, and they have they actually have this chipper now on tracks with a winch on it. So what we're gonna do is go in there and cut down some stuff, and we're gonna chip up all the brush, we're gonna make it nice and neat, nice and clean, and make it look like we're ain't even in there. And take the excavator and clean out the floor and stuff. So it's all gonna work out pretty good. One landowner, who owns most of the land there is Christine Watts. And she said this, any tree that you can't chip up, just pile off to the side. And the other guy that owns the house out front there, Davis or something like that, he said he'd go out and pick away with a 4-wheel and trailer if we left him a nice little, way to get out through there, which we're gonna make anyway to get their access to it for ourselves. And it will always be there, so if something happens down the road, we have a way to get in there and
Yeah.
clean it.
So, we should tell you to do it.
I make a motion that we approve the beginning of the process.
And I'll second the motion, and we'll vote yes.
Okay, so I am gonna try to get in there the middle of next week. And I will give you an update on the next meeting that we have here, or I'll keep Christine posted.
Okay, great.
Because I'm not seeing, the way I've looked at it, the way I want to approach, I'm not seeing any issues or any problems. I think it's gonna go smooth, it's gonna come out nice, and they're not even gonna know we've been in there. But we're gonna start from the other end, work our way back out to the road so people don't see a bunch of stuff going on. And he said we could use his driveway, nobody even know we're in there doing it. So.
Well, now everybody's
That's
gonna know,
your
because
Right, except for who's here now. I think the biggest problem is going, you try to get too many people involved, and it's just,
right,
But we have a camera right behind you.
so we don't, we will not
we're not doing
unnecessarily,
nothing illegal, we got permission.
and we will
That's
not
amazing.
unnecessarily raise people's alarm about something environmentally destructive happenings, because
No, everything is, it's nothing like that way.
we're actually returning the stream bed to its more natural flow.
Right. We're basically cleaning the stream bed up. We're getting the big trees that are falling in it, pulled back out, the brush that's been building up, with all the leaves and stuff, so it's dammed it up in
Right.
numerous places.
So this will also help with potential flooding of the road itself.
I don't think you'll ever have to worry about it, as long as that road stays clean. Once this is cleaned out, you will not see water back up there. It's, I mean, I'm doing some toe poles and I've been doing some heights, so we're gonna make sure we got that drop. Now, what I'm seeing is that we have on at least a 6-foot drop from that road in there to where it drops, so there is a place for the water to go there, but when it's all blocked up and filled in, it's gonna go over that and it's not flowing, so.
Good. This
I
sounds
think
like,
it's, and
that sounds like a really good solution.
I think we should jump on it and get it
Yeah.
going, so.
Well, John,
And I haven't heard anything from Rob Prue about the bidding process on,
The last I had correspondence from him, he said February.
okay,
That's what he's planning on, so it's coming right up.
so they'll be putting that out to bid in February
Yeah.
for that project.
We already have all of our permits in place.
Right,
Do we have a time frame so that we can, this time frame so we can keep the ball rolling as we,
they'll bid on it, but they will not allow them to do any work till August. What they'll do is put on the bid, because Army Corps engineer and whoever else will put on regulations that you can't do it in, say, June, because the bats are spawning and other animals and stuff like that. So the clearest month, they'll give you July and August to get the job done. So it'll be like a 2-month to 3-month period to have that whole job get done, to be complete.
and is it accomplishable in that time frame?
It'll have to be, whoever gets the bid will have to do it.
that's part of the,
Part of the bid package.
part of the bid.
Like I did one down in Pittsburgh and I had, I don't know, like 8 weeks to do it. And so you gotta set yourself up and do it, you just prepare, you get everything rolling. Just to build the culvert, it took them, I don't know, like 8 months.
Will Rob come and present to us what he's proposing for the bid and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's usually how it works.
Right, so we can
Yeah.
schedule
Right.
it for,
Mhm.
Well, February is a week away.
it's
Yeah,
good.
I would double check with him on that,
I will.
make sure that he gives you guys a copy of everything,
Right,
the bid process.
right, because we are actually the people who put it out to bid.
Right.
Good to know what we're doing.
You guys will be voting, on the bids and everything, anyway,
Right.
you'll have to,
Right.
he'll come see you and sit down with you.
I have a couple of questions, just because people are starting to contact the town about Sabino. So, because we're dealing with the temperature issue, is there any concern that work's gonna be starting early in the morning?
What do you mean?
Like, because we're fighting with a
time element.
right, before it gets too warm and everything thaws out. Is there any work that's gonna be done at like 6 in the morning or that sort of thing?
For what phase you talking about?
For this emergency repairs and getting in there?
It won't affect anyone.
No one's gonna be hearing racket,
No.
just to kind
If
And-
there is, it will be after 7.
of, okay.
So there will be no early grinding. I mean, if there isn't, they might hear a chainsaw, but they won't hear a house, no chipping or nothing like that. Now, there is something we need to look into, have a lawyer look into it or whatever, but we need to put a weight limit on some of these roads. I mean, Sabino Swamp, when they started doing all that work down Fulton's Pond, putting all them houses in there, that road took a beating, that's what it settled the most. So, we need to put a weight limit on the trucks that go down through there. We can't have these big triaxles going up and down that swamp. So,
Can you make a recommendation to the board on what the weight should be?
well, I think I gotta do more research on it and stuff and see what to do, but I mean, people say, well, you can't post these roads, this and that, 'cause we have no bylaws in it, nothing in the bylaws about it or something.
No, I'm sure it's in statute,
It is?
yeah.
Okay, well, that's what I've been hearing, because that's what I told it, we can't stop certain trucks from going across the hill road, because it's all.
Yeah, no, we have a right to maintain our roads.
Right,
They're town roads, we have a right to maintain
okay,
them.
so we need to start enforcing it, son.
Let's check with Sally about how to
Mhm.
beef up our
I mean,
roads.
we've had a sign on the hill road, and they ain't stop nobody, they just keep trucking, so.
It's actually a little quieter. It's certainly.
It's, yeah, a throughway, right, but, I mean, we're still having,
There's no more, it's dropped from about 12 wheel trucks in the spring down to about 8, so it's an improvement. It's not,
yeah, and, well, I don't understand the little trucks, it's when you're up there, it's
I
like.
drive them for the view.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Yeah.
Happy sawing. And I, for one, this year, am hoping that we have another freeze so that we can get this thing done.
So am I, but we're gonna have to try to move on it whether it's frozen or not.
Yeah,
From that end up, I mean, I've walked it, it's not really that bad, it's almost like a kind of a road deal on there, but it's grown up, looks like it's, people have done something in the past years, but it's grown up over the last 50, but I think we can work it without, I'm gonna try start working that in, but I'm worried about up by the swamp where it's all peat moss.
yeah,
I'd like to see that freeze up.
yes.
If not, we might have to attack it a different way by putting, they call it cribbing and stuff. It's like, they do it when they put the power lines in, it's just a bunch of 8x8s all bolted together. You've got mats, they call them crane mats or different stuff, but
I have to believe we're gonna freeze again.
I hope it freezes.
It's-
It's got them, it's
Got the
not
ice
even-
fishing derby coming up,
Right,
just saying. We go every year to that.
but this is the weirdest winter we've seen, huh?
Yeah, this is strange.
So we're trying to get the alewife run that used to run back in there. That's why we're cleaning out the stream. And go to the alewives.
Where are they called that?
Through Sabino Road, the
Yeah.
alewives used to come in there.
Really?
Yeah.
Come all the way up from Dave Road?
And on the, for Cape Brookers, that little stream there where they cut the road off, that was always alewife in there.
Oh, that,
Not recent.
Used to be. Really? I didn't know that. Where did they try to go to, all the way over to,
I think that they were just stupid alewives.
I gotta say, where they going, Campbell Pond?
okay, moving on.
Took a wrong turn.
The intelligence of allies is not anything that we can determine this evening. Item number 4, the boundary line between West Bath and Bath. Mike, you're still working on this project? And you've turned it over to Christine, so Christine, what do you know?
Well, Michael and I have been coming up with a very short and sweet letter to send to the county commissioners. Since this is a case of either non-existent or unidentifiable markers, we thought we would try a softer approach and ask the commissioners to determine where the line is. So you have a copy of the letter in your folder. We'd like to send this out and just see where it goes. The letter would be sent with some supporting information so that they know what we know.
I was in Jenny Birch's office and I asked her about that one time. And her and David King and a couple other ones have been working on all that stuff. So I don't know if anybody's checked with her, but she said she's gone back a long ways and had a lot of history on that.
That's interesting.
I have 1844.
Huh?
I have the act of 1844. It was the old road, the high water mark. And legally, the court cases since then have been more about beaches and the high water mark. There is no real good definition, but by case law, where it was in 1844 is where it is today.
Yeah, she was telling me about that and how they squared up Bath. And she had all the different, way back in the 1800s, and how it all originated and different owners. So I just didn't know, somebody give her a phone call, she might have some information for it.
They didn't follow, there's only one, two owners' lines that they used when they did either one of the splits. Neither one of those trails is very good. It's, one surveyor a few years ago said basically, they rewrote the whole thing and I can't figure it out, so right needs to settle it. But it's, I'm not convinced by that piece, but one monument at a time.
Thanks, Mike.
Should be in the middle of
You've done an amazing amount of research on this,
Yeah.
and the
You know what they
documentation
put
is,
they filled in there,
great.
the old road? It should be somewhere between the channel and wherever the water depth would have been in 1844, because you can still see the tidal mark on the other side of Whiskey Road, which is a biological high water mark. So you could drop the water down and get at it, so you'd be 10, maybe as little as 5 feet. And then they just have to stick a stake and say, hey, that's where it is.
Yeah. So this isn't really a result of any type of dispute, we just want a determination. So we're hoping that this
right, yeah.
path will work.
The clarification is all we're seeking,
Yeah,
there's no,
we're not tied to any outcome, we just want a determination.
just a good idea to know where your boundaries are.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll try that, see if we can get the county commissioners to help us with that issue.
If you go the formal route, you get locked into some very narrow paths, and it's not very flexible.
And this way, if this works, it becomes a much less cumbersome and less expensive process. I'm in favor of not cumbersome.
Thank you.
All right, next item of business, the 2020 budget calendar. You have that in front of you, and this has been checked with the Budget Advisory Committee.
I got your email, David, about the recycling committee, so we can certainly add them in anywhere you see that.
And we have the agency request by next Tuesday? Is it, that's the date? Have the agency request?
It's Tuesday after the
Community.
15th, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's the 14th. 14th.
It says here's the 13th second draft and capital request.
Yeah, but there's a deadline for
Deadlines.
requests from community agencies, that's February 14th.
And then they can appear.
Have we received any requests yet?
Yes. Yeah,
Most of them?
yeah, I'll go through them and check and see if there's any stragglers and I'll get in touch with them.
Because if I can maybe I'll stop by tomorrow and get copies to get a little advance notice of scheduling.
Because we have not in the past gone back to agencies that have been remiss in getting requests.
No, that's up to them.
We've made it fairly clear that they get their requests in, and we discuss the requests, but we don't go after people who might have missed a deadline. Otherwise, that creates a whole new job for you.
So can I just clarify, so these are the offices, each of these are the departments that are to get us their request by these dates, is that what this is saying here?
No, this is when the budget committee is meeting. These are the dates that they're meeting on these different items.
Okay,
So on the 6th, for instance, Julie will present an overview of what we've spent, and then she'll present a first draft of a proposed budget.
got it. And the capital requests, those are submitted to us? Is that what, and then we review that at that time, is that what that is?
The budget advisory committee takes, looks at those. They, and what they do is they receive all of the requests, and they essentially do our work for us.
It's broken down to fire department, roads,
You know, it's okay, animal control, we got fire department, road, school budget, first read, animal control,
Agencies,
harbors, so it's
town
all like
office.
vertical
Yeah.
alignment.
Right. And the first year I was on the board, I attended most of those as time permitted. It is a fascinating overview of what happens in this town. It really is very informative and important. There is so much that goes into this process. It's amazing, and the committee does an incredible job. Just asking good questions, making good suggestions, and they know the budget inside and out. It's really quite amazing.
Do you have any interest in utilizing the capital request form and or the memo that I gave you last time?
To tell the truth, I have not studied it as I should have.
Okay, because I can certainly send those out if you wanted to, it might help people. Or not, we can wait until next time.
Let's send them and see how useful they are. If they seem to be not useful to the committee's work and hours, then we would not use them, but there's no point in not trying to see if that helps with the
Okay.
process.
I think it would certainly help me when I'm submitting items for consideration.
Right. Well, you are an important
So
part
I
of
have
the
this,
process.
we have this whole building that we can take a look at.
Yes, yes. And it is a way to make sure that we look at as many things as we need to look at. So that's good. So the highlights of this for the public who doesn't have this page in front of them, as we begin the budget process on the 6th of February and conclude the allocation of funds on May 19th, 2020, at the annual budget town meeting at 6 o'clock at the West Bath School. And there's a public information session at 6 o'clock on the 12th at the fire hall. And everybody should go to that. Because it makes what's going on at the town meeting much more sensible.
What were those two dates again?
May 12th for the information and May 19th for the town meeting.
And we're allowing enough time for any public hearing for any ordinance changes? As we need 10 days, I believe.
Yeah, I'm sure we can. fit
So
that in.
you may have to bump that informational, perhaps ordinance meeting earlier to make a deadline.
I don't know, that's how it was last year.
And we did,
Yes.
We didn't have a public hearing.
we had a glitch,
We
there's
had-
no public hearing last year.
Right.
Because the
Does it
planning
have to
board
be
did
10
their
days
own.
before?
They hadn't. So that we need to make sure that anybody who's proposing an ordinance has that done in time
Okay.
to get that
Right.
I think the informational slash
Is there
ordinance
gonna be 10
meeting
days before
needs to
town
be
meeting?
earlier.
I'm not sure.
Yes,
Check.
though, any public hearings on an ordinance needs to be before the 12th.
Yeah.
So that we have the
I
10
think
days.
St. Carly's work is 10 days.
Yeah, I don't know. Carly and I are looking at each other. We need to check
Because
Well,
I,
typically, the public hearing would be at the informational session, because that's
the same,
more convenient than having
Have
two
to-
meetings for everyone to go to.
Yeah, I just didn't remember the 10 days.
I
and
don't know, well, I'm thinking of when the warrant needs to be posted.
Right,
Check.
well,
We'll clarify that.
yeah,
because
So the info session date isn't necessarily firm.
right. None of this is necessarily firm. It's for working purposes, but This is what we're planning on.
because there
Town
will be,
meeting date is firm.
Yes.
Yes.
there will be some ordinance changes, correct?
So I haven't been, I just looked at my schedule, I'm out of town on May 12th to the 14th. That has any impact. I have an important business meeting that I have to go to.
Well, I'm sure we'll
Just have
still
to
have,
watch the video like all of our other
Which is
non
right.
shenanigans.
I'm coming clean right, I just looked it up, I'm like, uh-oh. I
Yes.
have to go to that meeting, it's my job.
Well, we should have your robot done by then.
You could have it, you
Yes,
could build
sir.
a new need, that'd be great.
The theory of a public hearing is you get public input.
Right.
right,
Having them when you have the whole deal sealed is kind of like MDOT. So you have your public hearing, like maybe the last planning board before they nail theirs down and call it a public hearing, at which point
Well,
nobody will
technically,
show
none
up.
of it's
They
sealed
can't
until
complain.
town meeting.
I, myself, would prefer to have the public hearing on any ordinance changes separately, because the information meeting itself can be quite complicated. So if there are ordinance changes, and I don't know that there are, I think if we can expedite that process, I would like to do that myself.
in my experience, the public hearings are held with the committee that's proposing the ordinance change. It's not at the session, like our public information session.
And we have done both, depending on what we thought might be the complications, because some ordinance hearings are going to take longer to discuss than others.
The planning board traditionally has also held a meeting before they finalize the ordinance changes to have people have comments on the proposed changes.
Right.
And if you label that a hearing, it's much different than if
Right.
you label it a meeting.
Right.
Right.
And is there a 10-day timeframe for the,
Well,
We're
that's
not
what we need to
sure.
check.
okay.
I'm
So
not
then it may not be
familiar
the
with
12th
10
anyways,
days.
if it was 10 days, alright.
Well, the 12th would not be 10 days before the 19th.
Right.
Not usually, maybe a leap year.
We got this, we'll figure it out.
Tentative
May
meeting,
9th works great for me.
tentative, those are the tentative dates. And
Well,
that will
there's another
depend,
proxy there from the planning board anyway.
the scheduling will depend on what ordinance changes are going to be proposed, and we do not know that at this point. Is that as clear as I can make it?
I think so.
Okay.
There was a promise made in last year's town meeting that there would be a revisit, so there will be at least one.
There should be.
In my personal view, both of those should be revisited. The editorial, no impact, that's
Yes.
gonna be blessed,
Yes.
re-blessed.
We could do, and should do. Business item 6, holiday and office closure schedule. These are the holidays that we have traditionally provided for our folks. Some of them are not exactly holidays. The fiscal year end, the office closes at noon, it is hardly a holiday.
Well, and certainly the work does not grind to a halt at noon, that's just when we lock the doors to the public.
Good point.
So that you can complete the work of the public.
Correct.
That's a busy day. So, the holidays that are traditionally given are New Year's Day, we obviously have given that one for this year. This would also provide a calendar for next year. Martin Luther King, President's Day, Patriots' Day, Memorial Day, Independence Day. This year, I suggested that we also allow for the 3rd of July as well as the 4th. Labor Day, Indigenous Peoples' Day on October 12th, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving Eve, we have for the last several years closed at noon. Given Thanksgiving Day and Thanksgiving Friday has also been a day we've closed. Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, I'd like to close the office those days, both of those days. And New Year's Eve to close at noon.
Sure.
Second motion.
Second, do I propose that we do that, or second if that's okay?
That was the motion?
I propose that we accept this as a motion for scheduling.
And I'll second it, and all in favor? Thank you. And, business item 7, the painting of the interior of Town Hall. Christine, would you speak to this, please?
Yes, I have a request that we do the lower level of Town Hall, or as much as we can within this current budget. We have some money left in our town capital. We could certainly draw from that. I don't anticipate that it would be any more than $3,000. It would be good to get the lower level in shape so that we can go ahead and make it look professional and attractive. Turn the old code enforcement officer's office into a second boardroom or meeting room. Make it nice and clean. Start fixing up the bathroom. And I feel comfortable doing that within this current budget. We can do the upstairs, which would be more invasive in next year's budget.
If we're upgrading computers, as we discussed at the workshop on the budget, that would involve some moving of wires potentially.
It could, and I'm concerned about that, that if we're making new holes in walls or moving things around, that it would, wouldn't benefit us to take care of the painting upstairs yet. We need to figure out what we're doing. Ms. Carly?
Do you have a recommendation of what line in the budget that should come from? The
Building.
motion?
It comes from the
Building
town
fund.
capital.
Building fund.
Do we go to bid for painting? I mean,
Well,
what's the
under
process?
$5,000, we're not required to. I think we got such a good response from the people who came in within one day and did our ceiling when we had the lights installed. I would like to use them.
Do we have a color committee?
Carly and Julie could be the.
What are those? Cheers.
Are we in favor?
I
Only need
Propose
a-
motion to.
Yes.
Okay, I propose that we pursue the painting in this year's budget.
And I'll second the motion, and we'll vote in favor. Because it'll be nice to have the place clean.
You think we can maybe like WD-40 the casters on these chairs so that
I
we can
think-
move them?
I think that
They don't-
there's probably gonna be an upcoming trip to surplus to get
These chairs-
newer chairs that roll better.
And
So-
possibly, I might even be so radical as to suggest that we put in the budget something for new chairs.
You can get new surplus chairs from Augusta.
These are unbelievable.
And they've all gotten worse over time.
You can't move them.
A few have ended up in the dumpster, so, just saying.
I'm sure there's several that are gonna follow that.
Yes. Town administrators update, please.
I don't have much tonight. I've got another email from Nick Holman about the Boy Scout project for the cemetery. And he changed the design just a little bit. So I want to show you what he's proposing. Instead of the kiosk with the little roof line on it, he's proposing a cedar board with plexiglass. And there's some dimensions on the second page. So
Well, that's attractive.
yeah, we just need to go ahead and sign off again if you approve.
Yeah. I think it's good. Did he also send over a fundraising application? Is that in there?
No. Fundraising.
Okay.
There was something for the benefactors to sign
Yes.
off on.
There's-
Yeah, just to sign off on.
Yes, you have
Oh.
to sign it.
Yeah, I thought you meant something
Yeah,
different.
no,
Yeah, he sent that over.
That needs to be signed so that you can
Right,
have a tag sale or raise money.
yes.
Yard sale?
Garage sales. Maybe a bond sale, never a tax.
And the only other item I had was, Madeline, you and I had talked about possibly having a road workshop coming up,
Yes.
since we have several items to talk about, including winter roads and
Yes.
different things involving roads. I didn't know if you wanted to go ahead and schedule.
I have not heard from the MDOT. I suspect because they've had some personnel turnover. Let me try reaching out to them again. Because I think it would be nice if we got a jump on getting all the information together to put the contract together for the winter road maintenance. What do you think?
And then also talk about the capital planning for our regular road program, so that we have all interested parties in the room. We're talking about a type of workshop like we did with the audit, and like we did last time with the capital planning meeting, so that anybody who has an interest in road-related items could come and we can talk.
And then we all put together what we think is going to be the best contract, so that some of the issues that we have had with our first go-round with this, we can resolve, make your life simpler.
Well, what are they planning on buying sand and stuff again for the next contract, or?
Well, that's part of
What you trying to
what,
figure out?
that's part of what we would gather information about, and then with your advice, then we would make a decision about how that would go.
Well, that's probably another case of sooner than later, because it's February. And the budget time is gonna go by fast, and then you get a printer's deadline and all that, so
Right.
there's not a lot of time.
No, there's
Well, we should do it soon.
sooner than that, yeah.
And our plowing contracts are up for renewal this year. They're both in their third of 3-year contracts,
Right,
that we need to review those as well.
We do need to, if we do get sand, we need to jump on this stuff earlier too and have it.
In the summer.
Right.
Right, and how we manage the purchase of sand will depend on how we decide we're gonna write that contract, I think.
Right.
I've heard several people who know something about sand, not me, offer some suggestions about how to improve that process. And I would imagine you've heard a lot of people making comments as well.
Yeah. Well,
It's not,
a lot of people that makes comments on stuff, so.
Well, I think what I would like to do is see if we can get the smartest, best, and most cost-effective plan in place.
Was that kind of like your dream?
That would be my dream, yes. I have a dream we had roads.
I had a dream we knew where they were.
And we knew where they were, yes. Speaking of boundaries. So let me see sometime this week if I can get somebody from MDOT down to be our out-of-town expert we had some good advice from a person who used to be in the community advice job at MDOT, when we were talking about this last year. So we can use his wisdom from the email if we need to, but just to have everybody have a say before we start.
There's other answers out there besides MDOT, okay? MDOT is main thing.
Right.
They have a lot different budget than we do, so if you could maybe, I'll look into it to see if we can find somebody else to come down and talk about practical with the smaller budget that we have.
Well, and small town roads
And not an unlimited budget.
that were,
Exactly. I
that
mean,
were down there.
MDOT now, they've just totally changed every way they do things, and they're endless supply of money when it comes to way of doing things, and this town is no way gonna be able to afford what they gotta recommend. I can tell you that right up front and deal with them. So we kinda like to need to get somebody in that deals with the small town and works, takes care of their roads sufficiently.
Yeah, I think they could also help us, not necessarily with the quality part of the contract, but with the terms of the contract, so that we adopt the right language.
Right.
I think they'd be helpful with that.
You think MDOT is?
Yeah, with the terms.
When
Not
in a snow
necessarily
removal
like-
contract, we were talking about by mile or by, I mean, there was two different
Right,
ways
that's
to-
talking about whether to do it by the mile or.
Right.
or by the at time. And you just need to figure out what's the best way to fiscally manage the
Right.
roads best we
Well, I
can.
agree, I think there's a good way of having more than one contractor out there doing it. So if we lose that contract, at least we got some other contractor to help keep things rolling. That's why I was suggesting maybe hiring hiring out as per mile or whatever. But as far as the town supplying the sand, I think we made a mistake with that,
Yeah,
because we can't monitor it,
Mhm.
yeah,
and it gets abused.
yeah. I think we've learned a lot.
Right.
And, so let's put some of that to work. And without having to deal with an immediate crisis. So
Right.
so that we're not all emotional about stuff.
So,
I never thought in my life that I would get emotional about roads.
that's a lot to it.
They're fascinating, it really is wonderful stuff. So we'll work on that.
Yeah.
And I'll see if I can get somebody from MDOT to say what they say. You have some people that you know that do good job with local, small town road maintenance that maybe you could.
Yeah, well, I know a lot on that, the problem is the budget, and what I wanna do is try to get some people with the same amount of roads in the same area, because if you start comparing apples to apples with, say, Dresden,
Right,
that Dresden is not like working on the town roads in West Bath, because all of a sudden you've got the warm weather coming in from the water. And
right,
it changes the whole scenario. Bristol would be a good one to do,
Yeah.
one other thing to compare. But
Yeah.
when I say when you're getting out there, get people to come in and give you input and information, you need to have the same deal
Right,
that
so-
we're dealing with.
Because we get two, on peninsulas, we get two different weather events.
yeah,
Yes,
It could be raining in one place
Right.
and snowing in the other.
exactly, and that's
Yeah,
and we do that,
it's complex.
yeah,
what, so.
yes, we're not a one size fits all. So we'll see if we can get that set up.
Yeah.
And if we don't have any resident experts, we can compare, we don't have outside experts, we have people in town who know a lot about roads.
Yeah, well, with these cell phones and everything else and Google, you can get a lot of information.
Yeah.
Add it up real quick, it's not, anybody should be able to do anything these days.
Thank you. I have an other. When we were here last, there was Kathy spoke about being concerned about the rabies in the foxes and people being bitten. I reached out to Jay McCrite recently, and she had a conversation with an epidemiologist from the Maine Center for Disease Control. She was asking about the bait program. There's a bait program where it's actually the USDA that puts out the bait that for the foxes that contains the rabies vaccine. And they apparently use that to control broader areas than what we're experiencing. For the reason that apparently if the bait is too widespread, then it becomes less effective. I talked this afternoon with Scott Lindsay from our own Department of Wildlife, Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, and we had a really good conversation about what's happening here. I asked about trapping, would that help, and he said that the traps don't work so well in the winter. They're reluctant to do things in the spring and summer because they don't want to leave orphaned fox kits. They're saying the CDC is classifying this not as a rabies epidemic, but as a rabies cluster, which they don't think is as important. And I said that doesn't help if you're concerned about having your children playing in your own backyard. And both Scott and Representative McCrite agreed. Practical considerations we have heard before. That I know I could get in trouble for suggesting this, but they strongly request that people remove their bird feeders, because bird feeders attract things that the foxes feed on. We need to make sure that garbage is well enclosed and can't be accessed, and they strongly suggest that we not leave food out that wild animals can get to, because again, foxes will eat anything, apparently. They're generalists, Mr. Lindsay said. He also reminded me that if you are a person who keeps guns in your home, if you see a fox in your backyard, you have permission to shoot it, as long as you have permission of anybody who lives within 100 yards of where you're shooting. If you shoot a fox that looks not healthy, they ask that we notify them at Gray, and Carly, I can give you the numbers so that you can put those up on the website. What they say is that if you should come upon or cause to have a carcass in your yard, that you make sure that you glove yourself and don't touch something with your bare hands, which certainly makes sense. But he also said that once a carcass is cold, the virus is less potent, which is nice to know. So that's what I learned today about rabies. Mr. Lindsay recommended that those of us who are likely to come in contact with a fox unexpectedly carry pepper spray. I mentioned ticks kind of as a sideline, and he said that there's somebody actually doing research on some types of vaccine that can be given to mice. White-footed mice are the primary carriers of the bacteria that spread Lyme disease, and they're working on a vaccine for that. That's what I learned talking to in the fisheries and wildlife today.
And of course, the primary controller of population of mice
His
is
foxes.
foxes.
Yes,
So if we shoot all the foxes,
we don't want to eliminate
Yeah.
foxes. We do not want to eliminate foxes. We want to eliminate 6 foxes. The other thing is that in terms of current ecology, if we were to eliminate foxes, we will have more coyotes, because that's the next succession.
and I will give rabies credit for getting rid of the coyotes.
It's a cycle.
I don't know, they're multiplying, the coyotes.
I haven't heard.
I see where we got a new one now that's a coy dog, that's
Yes.
half wolf and half coyote, that's bigger, stronger, and
The
Won't be smarter too.
coyotes in the west, where they belong, are much smaller. They're more like the size of foxes, and our coyotes are much larger.
yeah.
What?
So where they belong.
Out west it is where they belong.
Out west, they're like the 30 pounds is good sized coyote, we're getting them around here now from
50,
50 to 60, 70 pounds,
yeah.
and that's, might as well call it a wolf.
Yes.
Those here.
So that's what I learned about rabies. The most important thing, though, the thing that people keep repeating is that if you are feeding the birds, you are going to attract foxes to your backyard because they come from us.
I know when I was feeding the birds, but it was the wrong birds, there was chickens, and the foxes would come all the time and pick the chickens, so. We had, we must have had, I must have shot 30 foxes out back there one year.
Wow.
Gray and mange, all of them, I was just, we was overwhelmed with them for a while, but I didn't, my daughter still loses 3 or 4 chickens a month from fox, but.
A month? Wow.
Yeah, they're pretty tough. I come home one day and I looked at my back lawn and there was, I don't know, 14 dead chickens scattered all over the place and a fox laying on the back lawn, but, you know, like.
I'm full.
Yeah,
What a picnic.
yeah, and then I watch them take one at a time, you take it, run off with it, come back, get another one, take it, run off, like,
Yeah.
so.
I think you're a fan of eating lead at that point.
You get another TV remote.
So, I have nothing else. Do you have anything else for
I
us?
do not.
We're done.
I motion that we conclude our meeting.
Then I'll second that and vote yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Do we have a signed one?
No, we do not. We need to do that.
Do you want to sign